Welcome back to Rising. Lindsay, what's in your lens today?
We're talking about The Great Gatsby, not something I thought I would be talking about, but here we are. I hope everyone had a good Halloween. The president certainly did. He spent his weekend throwing a Great Gatsby-themed party at Mar-a-Lago. Now, The Great Gatsby, for those who might have missed the symbolism in high school English, is a story about excess, illusion, and the moral decay behind wealth. F. Scott Fitzgerald wrote of the rich, saying, quote, "They were careless people. They smashed up things and creatures, and they retreated back into their money or their vast carelessness and let other people clean up the mess they had made." So the question is, was the Gatsby theme deliberate as a metaphor or just completely tone deaf? Because while guests sipped champagne under chandeliers, millions of Americans were losing SNAP benefits amid one of the longest government shutdowns in U.S. history. And it doesn't stop at the costume party. The White House is collecting money for a new Trump ballroom, a $300 million project, offering wealthy donors the chance to stay anonymous, even when their companies have business before his administration, according to the New York Times. The optics are grim. Major healthcare firms seeking Medicare favors. Wall Street powerhouses looking for trade advantages. Even NVIDIA's CEO admitting to donating to the project. So the message is loud and clear. Loyalty gets rewarded behind closed doors. Ethics experts have raised concerns about these donations, noting that they could lead to special treatment for donors or even test federal prohibitions on agencies accepting private gifts. Trump insists the ballroom is apolitical and that he'll contribute his own money, but the secrecy surrounding certain donors only deepens suspicion. Meanwhile, a Yahoo YouGov poll shows that 60% of Americans disapprove of how Trump is handling the economy, and only a third approve. The country's struggling, and yet the president is hosting a Gatsby-style gala, while food assistance for 42 million people hangs in limbo. Even California Governor Gavin Newsom weighed in on X, writing, quote, "Donald Trump hosted a Great Gatsby party while SNAP benefits were about to disappear for 42 million Americans. He does not give a about you." Donald Trump once built his brand by connecting with voters, promising to shake up Washington and level the playing field. But now he's building a ballroom instead of rebuilding that bond. Because when you spend your weekend partying in your own marble palace while people skip meals, and when you take favors from the rich to fund your personal projects, you don't just lose trust, you prove that you never understood who you were talking to in the first place. So I just think a lot of times it's about optics and being out of touch right now. To see that a lot of people, and 40 million is not a small number, people are trying to figure out how they're going to get groceries for the rest of this month. A lot of them disabled, some of them veterans, some of them young people, some people who are in between jobs in this rough economy that he said he was going to fix. At the same time, he's throwing a lavish, tone-deaf party about the rich and famous who can constantly...
Halloween.
Yeah, but it's not Halloween was the eve of SNAP benefits expiring. I mean, if President Obama used to golf, and then he golfed on Saturday, by the way, so he's not that concerned with the current state of affairs, it seems, from optics-wise. If President Obama would do the same thing, it would be a problem. We would talk about, oh, he's in Martha's Vineyard, I can't believe. I mean, plenty of critics did. You might not have, but plenty of people did. So I just want to be clear that this is how our president spent the weekend when we're in dire circumstances for a lot of people. So that poll that came out just this weekend said 60% of people are blaming Trump, thinking this is a bad economy, and this is what he's doing. So while you say you don't connect the $300 million project or just enjoying a simple Halloween to American tax dollars, you still should clearly see there's a connection between how the president is living and what he ran on, aligning with these people and leaving people in the dust who are the most vulnerable in our country.
I take a different lesson from the story of The Great Gatsby, which is one of my favorite novels. I consider it to be the quintessential American novel, which is about the American dream. And Gatsby is no one and rises only from his own hard work and self entrepreneurship to wealth and privilege and power that he built for himself, and then falls as well because of his own hubris and obsession with Daisy and other things. So in America, you can pull yourself up by your bootstraps and
with
rise,
dirty money and
for your hubris fall.
You're painting a very nice picture of Gatsby.
So all these people who need, well, Gatsby is great. I love Gatsby. I love the book. I love the character.
This is the author, F. Scott Fitzgerald, that wrote a summation of what he wrote the book.
So people who are reliant on government handouts for their food maybe should channel a little bit of that American spirit and work to better themselves and not be reliant on the generous taxpayers at all turns for their money.
Let's put SNAP to the side. the government is shut down. Air traffic controllers who are reliant on using their skill to organize plane flights throughout our country are now still not getting paid for the fourth week in a row. One of them, very popularly, because we had a News Nation special, said they're working DoorDash to pay for their kid to go to college. That's an example, present day, of DoorDash jumping in and saying, we'll help you out because our government will not. And the president is having a nice day. This is not a government handout. This is a man with probably a six-figure job that's trying to put a kid through an expensive college, right? That's the American dream also. They can't achieve it, but you're partying over there, spending hundreds of thousands probably on this life. I mean, did you see the party? There were dancers coming out of champagne flutes, probably 10 feet, 20 feet in the air. Like, this is what the president is spending the money on, while people who are not even asking for SNAP benefits, who work in our government, just getting things done so that people could travel to his party
Do air
safely.
traffic control services need to be provided by the government?
But they are. Here we are. You're asking, so because they are.
The core function of government to be
should
probably is something.
Should the president handle this right now, though?
efficiently.
Should the president handle this right now? We're here and
They
we
should
do.
be working. The president
Do you
is
fly
working
around?
to
How
get
did
out of the
everyone
government
get?
shutdown.
He's not.
He wants to get
He's
out of the government
not.
shutdown.
He literally is not. He went on 60 Minutes and said, I can't believe, Democrats aren't doing anything.
Well, frankly,
we want
it's
to
not
pass a
his
clean
job. It's
CR.
Congress's job.
No, he got involved early on and then played games. The Democrats wanted to have a meeting with him. He canceled the
Playing
meeting.
games. Democrats are playing games.
No, he's literally canceled the meeting with
Republicans wanna
Democrats.
vote for the exact same thing, and Democrats are playing politics and want a bunch of extra goodies thrown in. And they're Republicans saying
Not
no
goodies
extra
for people
goodies.
not to pay
The Obamacare
$2,000
subsidies are
for.
extra goodies.
It's
Those
not
were
goodies for
supposed to expire.
$2,000 for health care. Like, people need health
The
care in this
Democrats
country.
want to do a policy change.
You just heard Marjorie Taylor Greene.
No.
So even MAGA is split on this if anybody follows Marjorie Taylor Greene. This is a problem. You can't put a Band-Aid over healthcare and just say, oh, we'll talk about it later. Later is right now. We're literally in open enrollment. It started over the weekend as well. People simultaneously are trying to figure out what their health costs will be. Some people are going to watch it go from $900 to about $1,900, which is completely uncomfortable and unfeasible, especially in an economy that people are blaming the president for not being good.
Fix the healthcare system. We all agree on
So
that.
what's the president
That
doing?
needs to be done separately than simply subsidizing the failing system as part of an effort to fund the government. We should fund the government, and eventually Democrats will see reason and give in, I predict, and agree to fund exactly, and then we'll be like, well, why did we have to wait a month when SNAP benefits expired and air traffic controllers didn't have paychecks or whatever? We could have just done it a month earlier if Democrats agreed to it. That's how it's going to end, and as soon as the sooner Democrats get that through their heads and just vote for this thing, then we'll be out of this calamity that is not even that bad.
If you saw
And
it
then we can work
in my
on
reading,
healthcare.
we talked about how people feel about the president and how they don't think he's doing a great job with the economy. So if he's the deal maker, he also ran on that. I get things done. Why are we still here? He should be making a deal and having a conversation internally. He can make a bunch of international.
The deal on the table
He's asking.
is to
Wait,
vote
let me
for the
finish.
thing.
He's asking for international Nobel Peace Prize for his deal making, and he can't even sit down with people that are in his own country that all want the same exact goals, right? Which is prosperity, happiness for their family, all the basic American values that we all tout on both sides of the aisle. Then he needs to have a conversation with them.
They've had a conversation.
He is at the
and the
helm
Democrats
of
won't
the
vote for
Republican
it.
Party.
So
No,
there's nothing else to
a
do.
conversation is not my way or the highway. It's not clean CR and nothing. A conversation is, okay, let's start talking about this healthcare policy, and here's the Mike Johnson of the world who said they have all these ideas. Let's share them with Democrats so that they can know, and then they both should come to the table and tell us, here's what we're going to do about healthcare, and we're also going to pass a clean CR. That is a way forward.
I think we'll sit here and wait until Democrats get on board, and that's going to happen eventually. Lindsay, what's in your lens today?
Let's get right to it. So the President Trump granted a pardon last month to Changpeng Zhao, a billionaire crypto founder who pleaded guilty to money laundering violations in 2023. Now, Zhao's company, Binance, had even struck a business deal in May involving World Liberty Financial, the Trump family's own crypto venture. But when the president sat down with CBS's 60 Minutes recently, he gave us this unforgettable moment.
The government at the time said that CZ had caused significant harm to U.S. national security, essentially by allowing terrorist groups like Hamas to move millions of dollars around. Why did you pardon him?
Okay, are you ready? I don't know who he is. I know he got a 4-month sentence or something like that, and I heard it was a Biden witch hunt.
You heard that right. He doesn't know the billionaire he just pardoned. According to the New York Times, Zhao hired lawyers and lobbyists with deep Trump ties while seeking this pardon. And Binance made that lucrative deal with Trump's crypto company, reportedly worth tens of millions of dollars a year. So when asked if this looked like a pay for play, here's how Trump brushed it off.
How do you address the appearance of pay for play?
Well, here's the thing. I know nothing about it because I'm too busy doing the other.
But he
I can
got a
only
pardon.
tell you that.
But he got a
No,
pardon.
I can only tell you this. My sons are into it. I'm glad they are because it's probably a great industry, crypto. I think it's good.
So that answer pretty much leaves us with two options. Option one, he's lying, which would make sense considering Zhao's deal directly benefits Trump and his family. Or option two, he's telling the truth and really did sign off on a presidential pardon without knowing who it was for. Either way, that's not exactly profile in leadership. Because if the president of the United States can't recall who he's pardoning or doesn't bother to ask, what message does that send about accountability at the highest level? Especially the same president who has spent months insisting Joe Biden was too impaired to even know who he was pardoning, accusing him of using the auto pen machine. Now, during that same 60 Minutes interview, Trump argued, quote, Biden didn't have a clue. He illegally used, as you know, a machine, the auto pen, in order to give pardons to people. So let me get this straight. It's outrageous if Biden doesn't know who he's pardoning, but totally fine if Trump doesn't. At some point, we have to stop letting I don't know double as a political strategy. Denial cannot be the default response.
Well, Lindsey, though I occupy the right position on this show, I feel I am an independent-minded libertarian. I feel no obligation to defend every single thing Trump does if I don't agree with it. This is one of those times where I would not mount a defense of him not knowing who this person is that he pardoned, in the same way that I have criticized Joe Biden for not being aware of people he was pardoning, not even being aware of anything going on. I think this is similarly bad that he doesn't know. It wasn't just, I can't quite recall the circumstances, I'll get back. He's like, I don't know. My son said it was important, they're involved in this industry. This certainly raises the potential for corruption. I agree with him. I'm supportive of crypto. I think crypto should be lightly regulated so that we should continue to promote this growing industry. I think the respect for crypto that the administration has shown is good policy, but that does not excuse individual, even if it's not corruption, it looks corrupt, and he should not be issuing pardons to people he doesn't know what the circumstances are. So I don't really disagree with what you're saying. How about that?
I don't even have any pearls to clutch. I'm like,
well, I mean, so that goes to show you when I do disagree with you, it's sincere. I don't, it's fine.
but this is the
should
thing.
not do that.
So the lesser issue here would be if he didn't know, right?
Right.
The bigger
I think
issue.
he doesn't know.
The bigger
he
issue,
looked
which people
honest
are
to me.
leaning
I
on,
think he doesn't know
he
who
looked
it is.
honest. I don't know what that look looks like, but the bigger issue would be if you are making millions of dollars off of a deal and somebody's paying for a pardon, which is what the optics look like. So the president and his team get mad when Democrats look into stuff like this. This looks egregiously bad. Right. Somebody paid your son's company that you have nothing to do with, but you hosted a crypto dinner ball extravaganza right when you got into the White House for people who invested in your company that's kind of, by the way, your company, but your son's. But then you know nothing about who's investing in it or why. But then right after that investment comes a pardon for somebody that you don't know at all. So it looks like your sons are playing pay for play with your name then.
Right.
And that should be
Just
wildly
like Hunter
inappropriate.
Biden was receiving hundreds of thousands of dollars a year from a Ukrainian energy company.
Would I say that was
his
wrong?
Dad on the phone. No, right. To put his dad on the phone, and by Chinese influences and by all sorts of other things. And then when Joe Biden was no longer the vice president, Hunter's salary got decreased. That tells you something. And Hunter got a pardon for any misdeeds that might have occurred in that time. And
so
that was really bad, and so is this. Both those things are bad.
Actively, by President Trump and his team saying that Biden was using the auto pen, they want to dismiss some of those pardons, including Hunter Biden's pardon. And so by doing that and having your sons, one, engage in similar behavior to Hunter, and two, you pretending or saying that you don't know who you're pardoning, you're doing both things that you are targeting directly right now in this moment President Biden for. And I know I'm not arguing with you because you said you agree already, but to anybody who defends this, how to make it make sense. Which one? Which one? Are you greenlighting the behavior from your kids, or are you greenlighting pardoning people without understanding who they are?
I am concerned about the potential for corruption, personal enrichment, obviously that the Trump family evinces, that the Biden family evinces.
And if they'll do it here,
big
then
and powerful
to
governments.
expand the conversation, if they'll do it here, then they'll do it across the board. Like when people give you money for a ballroom and then you do something for them that makes them operate business more appropriately. I just want to drag out this conversation so you can connect the dots for me.
You want to give me some reason to fight with you. It's not, the money for the ballroom is for the American people because it's for the White House. Trump doesn't own the White House. He will not, it's not his, when he's gone from...
It makes him look good. It makes his legacy look good if he has this esteemed ballroom.
In the same way that Jackie Kennedy's
and so he takes
beautiful
money.
restoration of the original European influences of the structure, that also made the Kennedys look good, but deservedly so, because she did a great job with it. I mean, it's just, who cares?
Well, there's a conversation about private investors and what they're getting in return. What's the quid pro quo here? I think people have that conversation in mind because President Trump has shown us that where there's smoke, sometimes there's fire, and it seems to be like there's a little quid pro quo in this crypto pardoning. So people have to just ask a question. The Republicans can't get mad when people ask a question.
Powerful government, when you have a giant centralized federal government with vast regulatory powers that can, with a snap of its fingers, it doesn't have fingers, but with the movement, the workings of its gears, the turning of its operations, can destroy industries or uplift specific firms. My solution to this problem is not actually to have greater accountability or wall off influencing and lobby. There's no way they're going to get around that. The more is at stake, the more determined the biggest players, the most with the most money at stake, will find ways to influence the government, no matter how robust your campaign finance laws are or whatever else it is. My solution is to make the government smaller and less powerful, so that there's less of an incentive to try to bribe it into doing what you want. If the government doesn't have much, it just has some basic rules of the road, but can award massive contracts to this industry or massive favoritism to this firm, so on and so forth, well then there will be less influencing peddling to do. That's my only solution. People don't like it, but that's what I propose.
That seems like it would bring more fairness, particularly when it comes down to how the current president is handling
That's what my ideology calls for.
His business affairs in relation to his presidency.
Lindsey, what's in your lens today?
Let's get to it. So when Representative Marjorie Taylor Greene showed up on The View, it wasn't the viral chaos that some expected. It was something better, a real conversation. Now, let's be clear. Greene has built her brand as one of the loudest MAGA voices in Congress. But lately, she's been doing something rare in Washington, turning her megaphone back on her own party. Now, during a recent government shutdown fight, she took aim squarely at Republicans, saying that many Americans, even those outside her base, have been thinking for years. Take a look.
Healthcare costs have risen and risen and risen and risen. But I'm going to pick on Republicans. Republicans never fixed it. And then the ACA tax credits were passed in 2021, and there was a sunset date of the end of this year. And Republicans never made a plan for that. And I yelled at Mike Johnson last week on our GOP conference call.
Now, Greene didn't stop there. She kept pressing, not for more rhetoric, but for more policy.
I hope that Mike Johnson is finally giving a single health care policy because the country deserves it, and it shouldn't be a secret. And I shouldn't have to go into a skiff to go find our Republican health insurance plan.
Maybe
Honestly,
there is no plan.
You know what? You want to know something? That, I believe, is the truth. There's a lot of ideas, there's a lot of bills, but there's no consensus. And I think that's a failure.
Whether you agree with her politics or not, Greene is doing something we don't see enough in D.C., calling out her own team. She's criticized the Trump administration's military actions in Iran, labeled Israel's war in Gaza a genocide, and demanded transparency in the Epstein investigation, even when it made Republican leaders uncomfortable. Reportedly, Trump himself has asked senior GOP members what's going on with Marjorie. Maybe what's going on is that she's finally realizing that what many Americans know. The problems that divide us aren't always about left or right. Sometimes they're about accountability. Now, Greene noted that she appreciated the conversation between her and the other 5 hosts, and it had been, quote, professional and kind, and thinks more calm discourse needs to happen nationwide. Now, no matter where you stand politically, this kind of honest, across-the-aisle conversation is what the country's been starving for. And if Marjorie Taylor Greene, of all people, can sit across from the View table and admit her own side's failures and defend things she believes in as well, like immigration reform, then maybe, just maybe, there's hope that more people in Washington will start telling the truth too and get back to work.
Yeah, I thought it was a very interesting interview that she did on The View. I'm glad she is perfectly comfortable talking to people that she doesn't maybe agree with all the time or would have even been hostile in the past. And the ladies of The View were perfectly respectful of her. Now, maybe it's easy for them to be respectful when she's mostly saying things that are critical of Republicans, but it was a worthwhile conversation. And I've said many times I like and agree with Marjorie Taylor Greene's independent streak, hers and Massey's and others. I don't quite see it the same way she does on every single one of these issues. I do on most of them. I agree with her on Epstein, although we have some differences. I agree with her on foreign policy, Iran, Israel, etc. And I agree that Republicans have had all the time in the world to come up with a better health care plan, and they didn't. They haven't prioritized this, and that goes to the Speaker. I don't think his answers on this have been particularly persuasive. So good for her, and I hope she continues to have conversations with everybody. I've never met her in person. We've interviewed her on Rising once or twice, and she was very gracious, I think, even from the perspective of the person sitting in the liberal chair. She seems like a warm and open-minded person, and I appreciate having someone like that in Congress.
I wanted to ask you what you thought about something else she said on the show. I didn't want to play the whole show, but she talked about how she thinks that there are paid influencers in the MAGA base that are paid to basically just do whatever the MAGA base is asking. So she felt like she got attacked specifically by paid influencers just for saying she's going on The View or just for criticizing lately. And she said that. I know a lot of people were sharing and retweeting that, like, wow, you think people are getting paid to do this? But the way you describe it, and you're more active on social media than I am, is that this infighting is allowed. We fight in public, where Democrats maybe sweep it under the rug and fight. Like with Kamala, you see the book come out, and then they talk about the fighting, but they pretend like it didn't happen in real time. So break that down for me about if there's real drama.
The paid influencing thing is very complicated. Actually, Kamala's a good example because there was a lot of trending Kamala back when she became the candidate. Remember Brat Kamala?
Yeah, Brat the Green.
But that was
well, that was a Charlie XCX song, so it actually
fine. But we learned that this was heavily manufactured, and the Democratic elites had paid influencers to kind of manifest this on social media. So that was a thing. In terms of, look, I was always inclined to dismiss this accusation that the people speaking out against, that's an easy thing to say. No, there's no one who's really against me. The people against me, they're being bought off by my enemies. It's not real. I think that's a conspiratorial way of thinking, or no, probably if you're being criticized, it's because people disagree with you. And the most, the years of Russian influence, accusations that Russia was buying influence on social media. Remember, that was a claim that consumed the mainstream media for 2 or 3 years. And subsequently, we learned that the extent of that influencing, I'm not saying it didn't happen at all, was much less than had been presumed, or its impact was much less. Now, I don't know. There's been all these accounts on X. There's all these America First accounts saying, stand up if you're a real American. Real Americans believe this, and then you find out it's some Indian guy in India or in Pakistan or.
I saw two of the same exact. Are they called tweets still? Like in a row from 2 different accounts with 2 different faces yesterday, and I was like, Colin. Because I was like, maybe MTG doesn't like people criticizing her, but I was like, wait, underneath that exact post, I'm like, wait, somebody said the same thing with the same laughing, crying emoji in the same exact text. I don't know. I mean, maybe.
Well, my bottom line is I don't know either. You hear accusations of various Middle Eastern governments paying for influence, Indians, the Chinese, the Russians. I don't know. All I can tell you, the viewing public, is no one is paying me to say what I'm saying except the Nexstar Corporation that owns this show.
But they're not telling you what to say.
That's the God's honest truth.
But so also in that interview, I noticed that she didn't. So she made sure not to come at President Trump. She was like, "That's still my friend." And he's like, "But he might not." Joy Behar, who's being funny, is like, "He might not love you back right now." She's like, "That's okay. He yells at everyone. I campaigned for him. I believe in what he's doing with immigration." But she drew the line at every other congressional male Republican, and she was very direct and defiant about she said basically, and I hope I can say this is a pissing contest between men in Congress, and she was saying why women should be the example at the table to show people how to have civilized discourse and move forward in some of these issues. She said she yelled at Mike Johnson, he's not doing enough, and so she was just basically taking a broad stroke brush and saying all men on the Republican side in Congress need to do better. And so what's your response kind of to that part of the conversation that she was very, I know you don't like Congress in general as a whole, but she was very much targeting the men.
I don't like women saying it's all men's fault.
Well,
I really don't appreciate that.
Well, that's what she said. I'm literally not misquoting her. She was very adamant at the table and saying, see, we're the example.
Well, some of the ladies of Congress have not exactly acquitted themselves, and I don't mean that in a partisan way, but the screeching of Nancy Mace and Jasmine Crockett and a bunch of very attention-seeking, performative people in both parties. But I am pleased to say that Marjorie Taylor Greene is not remotely one of them and seems to be a serious thinker who cares about policy and ideas, and that's a good thing.
And you know what, speaking of bringing people's past interviews up, the View table did a good job, Whoopi Goldberg, Sunny House, asking her questions about some of the conspiracy theories she platformed. And she actually admitted that she was caught in a deep dive on social media and online of conspiracy theories. And kind of, she's like, I'm just like you guys don't know me that well. And you read clips that are taken out of context in my mind and then judge me based off that. I went into some deep conspiracy theories and I just realized I was wrong. Do you accept that, or do you think by the time you make it to Congress that somebody should be pretty much organizing their thought enough not to fall for a conspiracy theory?
I don't know. The perfect is the enemy of the good. And also, well, everyone got bamboozled by certain conspiracy theories. And in certain people got bamboozled by thinking things were conspiracy theories, again, to go back to COVID, as I always do. And then it turned out they were not conspiracy theories, like the idea that it, came from a lab initially, like the idea that the vaccine was not going to eradicate spread of the disease, although you said you're a crazy person for thinking those things, and then both those things turned, the vaccine certainly does not eradicate the spread of COVID because we have widespread vaccination, we still have COVID, and it is certainly not proven, but it is the contention of the Energy Department, the CIA, and the FBI that it all came from a lab. So
I'm sure we're going to hear more from MTG in the next few days.
Niall, what's in your notes today?
I'm glad you asked, Robbie. Today, I want to pay tribute of a kind to Zoran Mamdani, to his success in winning election as mayor of New York City, to the thousands of New Yorkers who volunteered for him, and the more than 1 million people who voted for him. They all beat the odds in their own way. It's worth reminding ourselves just how improbable Mamdani's rise appeared 1 year ago. Back then, he was a virtual unknown, a young Democratic Socialist state assemblyman. When his campaign began, he was at 1% in the polls. That was among Democrats. And in the end, he beat Andrew Cuomo twice. Cuomo, a former governor, the son of a former governor, the favourite of the Democratic Party's centrist Clintonite faction, and the favourite of some of New York's most powerful business interests. Mamdani first beat him in the primary in June, and he beat him again on Tuesday. And that's good, because in beating Cuomo, he beat back those powerful interests and beat back the well-funded politics of fear. Look at this chart from Open Secrets, an organisation that traces money in politics. That orange line you see there shows the money given to outside groups either to help Cuomo or to stop Mamdani. The green line, way, way below it, is the money given to help Mamdani or to stop Cuomo. The difference there speaks for itself. Mamdani beat back some disgraceful media coverage too, coverage that was often hysterical, fear-mongering, or blatantly bigoted against a Uganda-born Muslim. Now, believe me, I know there are many, many members of our audience who don't share Zoran Mamdani's democratic socialist beliefs. But I'd like to think that even some of those who disagree with his ideology might at least have some quiet admiration for his outsider victory. The people beat the power brokers in New York on Tuesday, and that's always a good thing. Here's the man himself underlining that point in his victory speech in Brooklyn.
Thank you to those so often forgotten by the politics of our city who made this movement their own. I speak of Yemeni bodega owners and Mexican abuelas, Senegalese taxi drivers and Uzbek nurses, Trinidadian line cooks and Ethiopian aunties. Yes, aunties. To every New Yorker in Kensington and Midwood and Hunts Point, know this: This city is your city, and this democracy is yours too.
This democracy is yours too. That's a message we don't hear enough in our politics, and that's another thing about Mamdani's win. It's in part a rebuke to the Democratic establishment as well, a rebuke to a party leadership that he cast as too weak, too fearful, and too corporatist, a rebuke to policy positions that are too often driven by the desires of big donors or the fear of offending them. Mamdani's morality, he said elsewhere in his speech, would be guided by a, quote, bold vision, rather than a, quote, list of excuses for what we are too timid to attack. I want to say a couple of words about his vision. It's been cast as scary or subversive by his opponents in politics and in the media. Here, for example, is the New York Post front page on the day after his election. But what is the programme that the Post and Rupert Murdoch are portraying as Soviet-style communism? A promise of free childcare for little kids aged 5 and under, a promise that city buses will be free, a promise to open one city-run grocery store in each of New York's 5 boroughs. And how will it all be paid for, the critics cry? Mamdani has already given his answer many times. It's by nudging up the city's corporate tax rate so it's on a par with neighbouring New Jersey, and by adding just 2% to the income tax rate of people earning $1 million or more. Only in America, where Democrats as well as Republicans often sing from the billionaire's song sheet, would offering free childcare for all, or asking the wealthy to pay 2% more tax, be seen as dangerously radical. But that's the point about Mamdani's candidacy. It was unafraid, and courage, just like cowardice, is contagious. That's why billionaires try to nip it in the bud. And it's why Zoran's victory speech has gone viral too. Because it felt good to see someone show some guts for once, to stand up to Trump and to stand up for this nation's greatest city, a city that I, like many immigrants, first called home here in America. And to do it all like this.
New York will remain a city of immigrants, a city built by immigrants, powered by immigrants, and as of tonight, led by an immigrant.
Or to do it like this.
This is not only how we stop Trump, it's how we stop the next one. So Donald Trump, since I know you're watching, I have 4 words for you. Turn the volume up.
Mamdani's win was so emotional for so many because it offered hope. We haven't had a lot of that recently. We need more of it. And on Tuesday, we felt it stir one more time. Turn the volume up, indeed.
Well, I don't want to yuck your yum, Niall, and I'm happy for you. And look, I'll give him a chance, just like I would anyone else. He is clearly a talented political figure. He is, and he kicked the Democratic establishment in the face, and they deserved it. The establishment put up no reasonable alternative to Mamdani. Right. So this is not. I don't have, my hair is not on fire. I'm not screaming that it's come to this. I think some of his idealism will will face practical difficulties in cajoling so many elements of this city into working with him. And it is probably likely his governance will not be any further left than Bill de Blasio's was. Is that Soviet-style communism? Probably not. I won't use that rhetorical excess. I did, it's not that I'm so against him, but I do, I'm watching the victory fanfare there, and AOC's there, and she's on her high horse, and Lena Khan is going to be on the transition team, whom I despise, and then Hassan Piker is there talking about how the Soviet Union should have won, and I'm like, okay, well, now we're getting into some real radicalism, and I just don't like to see Hassan Piker happy about anything, but whatever, it's not my night, it's yours. So.
Well, the Hassan Piker Soviet Union thing, I wouldn't didn't share that view. But I do think, AOC, naturally enough, celebrating a campaign that she herself supported. There was that big rally about a week or so shortly before early voting began, with AOC and Bernie Sanders and Mamdani. And I just think that the fact that there was so much money shoveled in against him, so much I regard sort of ludicrous media coverage. It's 3 million people are about to flee New York the moment he wins, and all that rubbish. So the fact that he was able to do that, and the fact, honestly, that Andrew Cuomo ran at times a very ugly campaign, I thought, especially in the final days of that campaign, sort of giving a nod and a wink to some of the awful stuff that was said in relation to sort of 9/11 and somehow linking Mamdani to that purely on the basis of his faith.
Well, in addition to that, I was offended by the way Cuomo and his backers treated Curtis Sliwa, frankly, because you're not entitled. You can make a pitch to those voters. They didn't really do that. It was more like, no, you don't want Mamdani, so you're obligated to vote for me rather than Curtis Sliwa. A vote for Sliwa is a vote for Mamdani. I just reject that kind of logic entirely. Make a pitch for his voters then. Didn't do that. It was more an entitlement that, well, no, I'm the legitimate opposition. Well, you're not. You lost your party's primary, dude. That's the Republican candidate.
Exactly.
Why shouldn't you get out and support him? Why does he have to get out to support you? It doesn't make any sense. And then you could, if you put their votes together, Mamdani, he got cleared 50%. He just barely, but he did. So it's stupid.
Who knew that we could find common ground on Zoran Mamdani? I find the pressure for Sliwa to get out ridiculous. He's the Republican Party nominee. Why did he get out? I mean,
Cuomo forced Eric Adams from the race too. It's like, what, everybody has to bow and scrape to you, my friend? I don't think so.
Ridiculous.
Yeah, ridiculous indeed.